And I'm continuing my conversation with Riki Ott, marine toxicologist from Alaska, who has spent the past 5 months, or 5 of the 6 months, in the Gulf, and she's here in the Bay Area. Now, I highly encourage you, if you're watching this, to watch part 2, because Riki has very explosive information about what's happening to people in the Gulf when it comes to health issues, and she believes that so many lies are about to be exposed. Now, Riki, I have been noticing that not many people are talking about BP anymore, and they have spent $100 million on a PR campaign. Give us an update on BP's role in all of this, and do you think any BP executives will ever be held accountable for this?
I think what we're seeing here is BP and these other corporations have so much money now that they can use not just the Coast Guard as a shield, like what we saw in the Gulf when the Coast Guard was ordering cameras away and people off beaches, but they can use our whole federal government as a shield, and they can just sort of fade into the background, especially now with the Citizen United case that happened in January of this year that opens basically corporate treasuries to unlimited campaign spending. Corporations can spend the money up front, or they can just simply go in the back door to these politicians' offices and say, if you vote this way, then we will launch a campaign against you and you won't get elected again. So it can be sort of through the front door or through the back door. They've got our politicians completely hamstrung right now. And really, it is like these invisible puppeteers controlling the strings of our politicians. So I think they can, like BP, sort of pull a vanishing act, except if you turn on your TV and you see all these happy ads that everything's fine in the Gulf. They can kind of step back and let their shields, their corporate shields, their corporate puppets, our elected politicians, do their work for them. I mean, that's really what we're seeing. Will BP be held accountable? Well, if what happened to us in the Exxon Valdex is any indication, we fought with 80 law firms for 20 years, and we ultimately lost. We got paid, we were reimbursed 10 cents on the dollar. It was 20 years too late to help with the foreclosures, the bankruptcies, the divorces, the mortgages. And when Exxon and now BP says, we will make you whole, exactly what is the price for a divorce, a suicide, domestic violence? I mean, it is impossible. It is impossible to clean up an oil spill once it has spilled, and to undo all the other damage that ripples out of the financial losses that go on for possibly decades.
Tell us about BP's role in schools.
Oh, this is, okay, so the latest thing here is that just as I was leaving, BP and NOAA have partnered, and they are going around to 8th grade schools in Louisiana and extending to other states to share, children, oil and dispersants are not toxic. Here we have an aquarium, have a little bit of cocoa powder, hot chocolate, no problem. Put that on, that's the oil, put in Dawn dish soap, poof, it all disperses. And it's all gone, end of problem. This is the beginning of the problem. And to add insult to injury, the NOAA person's name is Riki Ott, of all things. So there is an Ott in the Gulf right now saying that oil and dispersant is fine. And in fact, this is a deadly concoction. And it is not going away. People are still measuring it in the air and in the water. Who knows what effect this is going to have? I expect there will be holes in the ecosystem, just like we saw in Prince William Sound.
Who approved this program?
I didn't have time to look into it. I literally was flying out when I first heard about it.
I'll put a link under this video to that story.
Well, you know what? Not only that, EPA has posted a chart showing all the other places where the dispersant, which is a very toxic, it's an industrial solvent, all kinds of nerve damage. This wreaks havoc on bodies. But the ingredients are also in Klondike ice cream, Pond's, lip gloss, children's ibuprofen, all these seemingly non-toxic products that we use every day, when in reality, people should be saying, EPA, are you testing all these products that before they go on the market? And the answer is no. Absolutely no. And this is probably why, contributing to our 2 out of every 3 people at risk of cancer at some point in their lifetime. I mean, this is a national embarrassment, what's going on right now.
What about the ecosystem? What effect will this have, the long-term effects on the ecosystem? Some of the citizen journalists I was talking about, they go out to the beach every day and they dig in the sand and they find oil.
People's feet are still peeling. from the effects of the solvent, which is dissolving the layer of tissue on your feet. So what I'm thinking is that this oil did come ashore, and we know it's on the bottom of the Gulf, 2 inches thick. We know it's back in the marshes, and people also now know that the solvent allowed the oil and the dispersant itself to penetrate deeply into the marsh grasses where the roots got damaged, and it looks like the water transportation cycle is somehow messed up. So this is an evolving story. Right now, I do anticipate that short-lived species that were young of the year when this 4-month fiasco was going on with fresh dispersant, fresh toxic oil, I don't see how anything could have survived that. So we need to stay with the Gulf and believe the stories of the people down there. I know there are students looking into this and trying to do forecasts, but I anticipate there will be holes in the Gulf ecosystem. And whether they'll all add up ultimately to a collapse, like what happened in Prince William Sound, I don't know.
Are you still receiving invitations from mainstream media outlets?
I received so many that I could have filled every waking moment of my day, and I actually stopped doing them, which was probably an unfortunate call on my part, just because there were so many stories and the people of the Gulf wanted to know, where were the doctors, how do they treat these skin rashes, where do they go, that it took all my time and energy to do that. And I did get the Huffington Post Changemaker 2010 award for my few blogs, but actually really for the work of community building. I will be going back to the Gulf January through April. I've committed for a full year to be down there to help doing the deeper democracy organizing that the South wants. They're starting to ask me questions. Isn't this America? How come we're being treated like third-class citizens? What can we do?
And the other thing you told me when you were on my radio show, you said that a lot of people, regardless of political affiliation, that doesn't even matter. You said the South is rising.
I have witnessed the South rising. And when there's a cultural shift, it doesn't have to mean the entire culture shifts at once. And I have seen enough people in enough communities from Florida to Louisiana saying, look, we need jobs, but we don't need jobs that kill us. So why couldn't we start up a small scale solar, small scale wind? And if people see what's possible, that is how cultures really do shift. More and more people see what's possible. So I have met the dreamers, and the dreamers are networked, and I'm going to go back and work with them.
And for people who are watching who want to take action on this, what is the most effective thing we can do?
Well, stay abreast of what's going on in the Gulf, because I'm still hopeful that this can be a turning event. BridgeTheGulfProject.org, RikiOtt.com. I will be posting direct action protests where people can get involved, petitions that people can sign. But also, it's going to be about doing the deeper democracy organizing in your own community. What would your community look like if it was to start shifting? What would your neighborhood look like? And on these direct action protests and rallies, do them in your own neighborhood. So even if it's happening in Washington, D.C. or down in the Gulf, you could do a solidarity rally with your children and alert people that it's not okay for our democracy to be hijacked.
Riki Ott is a marine toxicologist from Alaska. She survived the Exxon Valdex oil disaster. She has spent 5 of the last 6 months in the Gulf fighting for the people, fighting for the underwater life, and she's going back in January. Riki, thank you so much.
You're welcome.